Hey everyone, coming at you today with a MTG Arena video talking about MTG Arena, the new player experience, how it is now that it's hit open beta. Stay tuned to find out more. Scar TV. Hey everyone, Scar TV here, helping you game smart. Today's video, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be breaking down MTG Arena and seeing what it's all about, how it compares to other online card games that are out there, how to kind of give, a little bit of my personal experience with playing Magic the Gathering, seeing how it plays out, seeing if the economy is there, the player base, so on and so forth, and if it's beneficial to being a free-to-play player who may not want to actually invest any real game currency. So we're going to start off the video here with talking about gameplay and going over the basics of the gameplay. I may talk about a few various things that may be slightly more advanced, something that the tutorial may not teach you. If you want to, know things like that, there are a lot of good resources online on MTG to figure out, certain things, certain decks and things like that. But we're going to start with the gameplay, and the gameplay is pretty straightforward. So pretty much the way Magic the Gathering Online works is that each player draws a deck of 7, or a hand of 7 cards. And in that hand, you figure out whether if I want to keep that deck, if I want to mulligan, and you start from there. If you have a decent amount of land, a decent amount of spells that you can play relatively early, it's probably a keeper of a hand. If you don't have many lands, or you have too many, or too many lands, you may want to mulligan, which then therefore you would reshuffle your deck, draw 6 cards, you draw 1 less, and then go from there. If that hand's better, then you proceed forward and you start your turn. If it's worse, yet again, you can shuffle your hand into your deck, draw 5 cards. It gets 1 less every single time you mulligan. The idea is that you probably want to hit a hand within the first 5 turns, or first 5, you don't want to get below 5 cards, because then you kind of play at a disadvantage because you're already 3 cards down compared to your opponent. What you want to do is you want to find a decent curve into how you want to start your game. In the gameplay that we'll probably be playing as I'm talking about this, I started out with only a 2-land hand, and a decent curve where I can kind of by like turn 3 I can start really pumping out some stuff. And the other thing too is when you first start off, they go through this little tutorial and they kind of teach you pretty much how to play the basics of the game. Like I said, there are more advanced rules and tools and things like that as you kind of learn more and more about Magic. One of the probably the most complicated things that some people even that are experienced still don't understand is sometimes how the stack resolves. Yet again, the stack is a term that just kind of is the buildup of different spells that are played on a certain turn. See, Magic's a little bit different than the games that are currently out there, whereas just because it's not your turn, you can still do stuff where, like, say Hearthstone is, once you pass the turn to your opponent then has pretty much range of what they're doing, and they can choose to attack your creatures and attack you, and pretty much you just gotta have to take it, unless your cards themselves have an ability that, if they die then they get an effect. But pretty much Magic, you can play something on your turn, and if you have mana open, you can then react to what your opponent's doing. So they may play a creature and you may have a counter spell in your hand and therefore may be able to counter, and then that creature doesn't come out into play. Or they may play a creature and comes to attack you, and you may be able to either burn it with a spell and destroy it, or you may be able to block it or do something like that. You may be able to play like a creature in with flash. Yet again, if any of this sounds complicated to you, I'll try to be a little bit more simple about it. But pretty much, if you kind of watch my gameplay, you'll kind of get a basis of what my deck is about. I think in this clip that you may be seeing, it's a red-white deck I kind of built on my own. I didn't really go off a list. The other thing too is if you're very unfamiliar with how deck building works, I would suggest there's a bunch of tools online. I think MTG Goldfish has actually the command to almost import any deck list that's meta into MTG Online. It will actually tell you what cards this deck needs and pretty much will help you, guide you through building the deck. The other thing too is I wouldn't invest a lot off the beginning into getting cards and things like that, especially if you're very new and unfamiliar to the game. I would suggest hold on to your currency that you're acquiring as you're playing through tutorials, as you're playing through a couple of games that you may be playing, and trying to figure out what you like and what you don't like, because every color that you do choose has like its own type of strategy and how the deck plays. You may be playing like a red deck, which will be more aggressive. You may be playing a green deck, which may have big creatures that kind of stomp the face if they go through. Or you may be playing a blue deck that may be more controlling and slows down the pace of the game to kind of like, more of a tempos, more of your own speed. You got to find what works for you. Which brings me to another point is that if you start some decks require a lot of thinking, like especially a control deck, and the one thing that kind of gets a little annoying is that sometimes the timer really starts really quickly, and there's a lot that has to happen. Especially I think I was watching someone and they were playing this combo deck where every time they played a spell, and almost copied an instance of that spell and did it again, and they started playing a bunch of spells, and they kind of got to this thing where they had to pretty much just spam the OK button because they had to pretty much just keep on doing the same instance, and it kind of got a little frustrating, I think, for the player because they were pretty much running out of time before the deck allowing them to do what it really does, which is good and bad. I mean, it keeps the pace of play up, so you can't just sit there and take 10 hours on your turn, but at the same time too, especially if you have to do some serious thinking, especially in a very crucial situation in the game, you may not want to just throw everything out there. You may want to think about, if I play this, what's this going to do for me? Which is good, which is bad. Yet again, it's personal opinion. If you're playing something more aggro, there's probably not too much thinking other than, okay, if I burn this guy and then just attack everything, that's pretty much straightforward. And I think, I would say it's pretty balanced. Like I said, I currently don't play anything that's super crazy, like time consuming when it takes a lot of thinking. Like a lot of my decks are more aggro based just because my collection of cards is very limited. And that's the other thing too, is you don't want to invest, like I said, too much right off the beginning, especially when you don't know what you want to play. I would say, you play around with the different colors, see what you like. As you play more, you unlock more decks. I think they give you the basis of 5 decks, which are one of each color. And then slowly as you play, you unlock collaboration decks where it's 2 colors put together where they kind of synergize. They have every deck that you do play is basic, but at the same time too is a little bit more advanced. Like they each have each deck has its own rule, I would say, which is good because it kind of teaches you how things synergize together. Whether it's building life, building counters, building enchantments, things like that. Each deck has something unique about it, which makes it very cool. And especially when you're new and you don't know much, you get an idea of what potentially could happen. I mean, if you want to invest money, you kind of already are familiar with Magic the Gathering. The economy is a little interesting. So you build gold, which is pretty much acquired from just playing the game. And with that gold, it costs 1,000 gold to buy 1 pack. You can also use gold to pretty much get entries into the draft. You can pretty much use gold, I believe, to play some other game modes. I think there's Singleton, which is you pretty much play a deck of 1 of every card. I've yet to really play around with that and see what it's all about. And each kind of different game mode, other than the basic just play cards against someone else, has like a unique tier. Every time you win, you get an increased prize, and every time you lose, it's like a red X, kind of like Hearthstone's Arena. So each different game mode has its own kind of like ranking system of the prizes go up the more you win, and once you lose out, you get whatever prize it ends up with, which is kind of cool. The other thing too, it has this gem system, which is weird. So you can't just use money and just buy cards. You buy packs of cards. You have to spend money to then get these gems, which then the gems convert into, you can then convert the gems into crystals, or not crystals. Convert these gems into packs. You can convert these gems into entries as well, into playing in these events, or you just pretty much hold on to the gems and use them as you see fit. And then it brings me on to my third thing. So there's no player-on-player trading at all, so I believe that's there just so that there's not a side market that's pretty much gouging prices that Wizard seems fit to charge for cards. What they do instead is they have these Lotus cards, and they come in various tiers. So a Lotus card, what it is, it's like a wild card. You cash in this 1 Lotus card, whether it's common, rare, uncommon, rare, mythic, and pretty much what you get in return is a card of your choice from that tier. So if you take a mythic card, a mythic Lotus, you can trade that in and convert it into a mythic card, so which is good. So instead of actually getting a random wild card, like where you have no choice, you get a card that you may want. So if you're trying to build a deck, you then get this mythic card, which is going to benefit your actual overall experience of getting your deck more finished, which is yet again, like I said, it's good, but at the same time too, it can be bad. So I don't know exactly how these Wild Lotus cards work. If you get them sporadically, if I own 4 copies of a card, do I just get, you know, if I were to technically get my 5th copy, does that card now become a wild card? I don't own that many cards, so I really personally can't say whether yes or true. I know in packs you technically get a 1 in 30 chance of getting a mythic Lotus card, which is, I guess, good, but at the same time too bad, because if I get that, it replaces the slot of your rare card or possible mythic card with this Wild Lotus card, which I guess you could, which is good because you can pretty much then go out and get any card you want. The only problem is you can't technically, from what I've seen, you can't break down your own cards that you currently own in your collection and convert them into other cards, kind of like you would in Hearthstone. Like if you want to not play, say, a certain class in Hearthstone, you can kind of break down a lot of the stuff in that class and then pretty much convert it into dust, which then you can then turn into like currency to buy these cards to then play another deck. In MTG Arena, you can only pretty much use these wild cards to pretty much get the cards you want. Which I guess is good and also bad, because if you don't really want to waste your time, you know, opening packs and waiting to hopefully get the cards you need, or, you know, especially when you're free to play, you don't want to spend, you're not trying to spend any money whatsoever, you're just trying to spend your gold to get packs, which creates like this weird damper on the experience. It will take you longer to get these cards that you need to actually build a deck that you want to play, which can be kind of deter like a player's like ambition to actually want to play. It kind of brings on to my other fact too, is that when you kind of get out of the beginning blocks of the game itself, you kind of get into this weird mode where you play against, it's supposedly supposed to balance you against people that are like skill. So you kind of get into this weird tier where you play against people who have either spent money or been playing longer, and they kind of have a better constructed deck than you do. And sometimes you get steamrolled, and sometimes, you know, which isn't fun for the player who's, you know, especially when you're brand new, you just come out of the tutorial and you're playing your first couple matches and you get this person who's playing like a set deck, like a deck that's part of the meta, and pretty much just steamrolls over you. You don't really learn anything. Whereas if you were to play like the basic deck, I think that you should play against a person who's also playing with a basic deck. It kind of makes it more fun and, you know, engaging. I can understand why they kind of don't want to do it that way, because then you can just sit there playing basic decks and, you know, maybe just get really good with the deck and then go out there and just grind a bunch of currency and then get all these cards. I can understand when you start constructing decks, they want you to play against other constructed decks, because technically, I guess you're a little bit more advanced of a player than a basic player. But at the same time too, I just think like maybe until you get to like a certain rank, you only play against people who have basic decks. And at the same time too is that you can't really edit your decks until you get to a certain rank, so that therefore you're not trying to you're not trying to like rig it so that you kind of like just roll and get like all this currency. Like I feel like they could balance it maybe a little bit better, so that there's like more of a balance between newbie and also advanced player. Like if there was a way I could just signify that I'm an advanced player and kind of just skip a lot of the stuff. Unfortunately I had to play the tutorial at the beginning and kind of get the fundamentals all over again, even though I kind of already know them. It's embedded in my, you know, brain that I won't actually ever forget. But like I said, MTG Arena as a whole, it's got a lot of promise. I do like, I know some people don't like the flash that it may have, but I do enjoy the flash a little bit. It kind of creates that more interactive gameplay that, you know, especially MTG Online doesn't have, where it's very, very archaic, very old school, like, you know, very basic of a program. But MTG, if they keep MTG Arena the way it's going, I think it could be a very strong competitor to, say, a competitive Hearthstone. I mean, if they already have the player base that plays the physical card game, if they were to incentivize the people who play physical cards and go back to playing people who play, you know, if I buy packs in real life to packs virtually, you know, that'd be a good way to get people engaged into this community that is still fairly new. So if, you know, you go out to your local game store, buy, you know, 6 packs of the new set, you get 6 little vouchers in this pack now that you go online, you redeem the code, and then you get 6 virtual packs. I feel like something like that may help the player base, especially with it being brand new, brings people in, keeps, you know, community growing. You know, I don't know how many people really know about MTG Arena unless you're like a super hardcore fan. I think I only found out about it because I saw someone talking about the video on a YouTube video, and that's, you know, I then jumped in and I've actually been enjoying my time. Like I said, I still build on my collection. I haven't really invested that much money. I think I invested $5 of my own money because they offer like a pretty decent starter pack for $5 that you can only redeem once. But it pretty much gets you started with getting an X amount of packs and kind of get you going, building your, you know, your collection up. I'm not sure 100% where the game's gonna go because like I don't know when they rotate out sets. Yes, that's another advanced thing. I don't want to get too much into detail. I feel like I could talk about rotation and how that may affect this game. Whether then if they consider going back into older sets, I don't know. But pretty much what I gotta wait and see because we still have, I think, 2 more sets out of the current block that of Ravnica to come out. I'm not really 100% sure what happens to your cards after a set rotates out, so a lot of your older cards, I don't know where those go, if they convert into currency or if you just hold on to them, but that's one of those things I'll have to wait and see. Like I said, I've only just started. I think I've only put in like 3-4 hours into playing. Let me know if you've been playing MTG Arena down in the comments below. Also, I'll drop a link, like I said, for MTG Arena if you haven't downloaded it already to try it out for yourself. And as well, there's a code that I found online to get 3 packs of Ravnica for free. I believe it's called PlayRavnica. I'll also just post it in the description below so that you can just redeem that as well for yourself and get 3 packs without actually having to pay a single dime. Like I said, hopefully you appreciate this video, MTG Arena. If you want me to post more videos like this, slap that like button. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here on the channel. So if you'd like this video and want to see other videos like it, hit that subscribe button, turn that bell notification on, and I will catch you in the next video. Scar, logging out.